4 years ago, a 7 months pregnant woman pounded desperately on the locked iron security door of her burning home, screaming for her husband to open it. Through the flames, she saw him standing outside holding the key, his arm wrapped around another woman. He looked his pregnant wife dead in the eye as the fire engulfed the room behind her and whispered to the woman beside him, "By sunrise, she and that baby will be gone. We'll start afresh," and turned to walk away. The mistress smiled that night, thinking she'd won everything. The man, the $3 million in insurance money, the ring, and the perfect life that belonged to Naomi Garrett. But what they didn't know was that the fire didn't kill her. It forged her into something they should have feared. And now, for years later, she's back. Not as the soft, trusting wife they destroyed, but as the woman who will take back everything they stole from her. This is the story of how a dead woman rose from the ashes to destroy the people who burned her alive. Hello friends, welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe. Also, tell us in the comments where are you watching from. New York? London? Maybe Canada or Jamaica? We want to know. 3 weeks before the fire that should have killed her, Naomi Garrett stood in the kitchen of her modest bungalow in South Dallas, piping buttercream roses onto a 3-tier cake. Her apron stretched tight across her 7-month belly, and every few minutes she'd pause to rub the spot where the baby kicked. At 29 years old, Naomi had built exactly the life she'd dreamed of. Small, yes. Humble, maybe. But it was hers. Her home-based catering business, Sweet Naomi's Kitchen, had become the talk of the neighborhood. Every church gathering, every senior citizens luncheon, every family reunion they called her. Sister Patterson from down the street said Naomi's peach cobbler could make a grown man cry. Deacon Morris claimed her fried chicken was anointed. She loved her community and they loved her back. But more than anything, she loved her husband. Darius Carter had swept into her life 5 years ago like a summer storm, all charm and big dreams. He'd been a housing inspector back then, the kind of man who showed up at apartment buildings with a clipboard and a smile that could disarm the toughest landlord. He was tall, dark-skinned, with a fade so crisp it looked painted on. When he smiled, his whole face lit up. When he talked about the future, about building something, about legacy, Naomi believed every word. They got married at the courthouse 2 years later. Nothing fancy. Naomi wore a white dress from Macy's. Darius wore the navy suit he'd bought for job interviews. They honeymooned in Galveston for 3 days, walking on the beach, eating seafood, making promises about the family they'd build together. "I'm gonna give you everything," Darius had whispered to her on their wedding night. "Big house. Nice cars. Vacations. Our kids won't want for nothing." Naomi had kissed him and said, "I don't need all that, baby. I just need you." But somewhere along the way Darius changed. Or maybe he'd always been this way and Naomi had just been too in love to see it. He quit the housing inspector job and started calling himself a real estate developer. He wore expensive cologne now. Cologne Naomi didn't buy him. He came home late, smelling like cigar smoke and perfume that wasn't hers. When she asked where he'd been, he'd kiss her forehead and say, "Handling business, baby. Building our future." The work trips got longer. The late nights got later. Their anniversary came and went, and Darius didn't even remember. He was in Austin, he said, meeting with investors. When Naomi checked their bank account and saw a payment for $3,000 labeled consulting fee to a company called IR Enterprises, she asked him about it. "It's nothing," Darius had said, barely looking up from his phone. "Just business expenses." But Naomi saw the name of the account holder. Imani Rhodes. She didn't say anything. She told herself it was nothing. Darius was working hard. He was building something. He was stressed. With the baby coming, with bills piling up, with his big dreams always just out of reach, of course he was distant. Of course he was tired. "Family first," Naomi whispered to herself as she decorated that cake, her hand resting on her belly. Especially with a baby coming. But what Naomi didn't know, what she couldn't have known as she piped those perfect buttercream roses, was that 3 blocks away in a sleek high-rise condo overlooking downtown Dallas, her husband was making a choice. And it wasn't her. Imani Rhodes stood in front of her floor-to-ceiling window, a glass of wine in one hand, her phone in the other. She was gorgeous in the way that turned heads and stopped traffic. Caramel skin, long Brazilian weave that fell to her waist, body sculpted by a personal trainer she could barely afford but refused to give up. At 32, Imani had spent her entire adult life clawing her way up from nothing. She'd grown up in the projects on the east side, watching her mother work 3 jobs and still come up short. Imani promised herself she'd never be that woman. Never struggling. Never begging. Never settling. She'd started as a bottle girl at the hottest club in Dallas, then worked her way up to promoter, then event coordinator. Now she ran the nightlife scene in 3 cities. She knew every politician, every businessman, every man with money and power. And she knew how to get what she wanted from them. When she met Darius Carter 2 years ago at a fundraiser for city council candidates, she saw exactly what she needed. Ambition. Hunger. A man who wanted more but didn't know how to get it. A man who was married to a woman who would never fit into the world Imani wanted to live in. They started sleeping together within a month. Darius told himself it was just physical. Just stress relief. Just a mistake he'd fix eventually. But Imani had other plans. She didn't want to be the other woman. She didn't want to sneak around hiding in hotel rooms and lying to friends. She wanted the ring. The title. The legitimacy. She wanted to be the woman on Darius's arm when he finally made it. And Naomi Garrett, with her modest catering business and her swollen belly and her church girl smile, was standing in the way. If you want a future with me, Imani said to Darius that night, 3 weeks before the fire, then you need to free yourself from her. Darius sat on her white leather couch, his head in his hands. It's not that simple, Imani. She's pregnant. That's my kid. Is it? Imani's voice was cold. You sure about that? Darius looked up, anger flashing in his eyes. Don't play with me. I'm not playing. Imani sat down next to him, her hand on his thigh. I'm asking you to choose. Me or her. The life you want or the life you're stuck in. Because I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not waiting. I'm not hiding. Either you handle this or I'm done. She stood up and walked to the window, her back to him. She knew exactly what she was doing. Darius was weak. He wanted things he couldn't afford. He wanted status he hadn't earned. He wanted respect he didn't deserve. And Imani knew how to use that. You know she has a life insurance policy, right? Imani said, her voice casual like she was talking about the weather. $3 million. I saw the papers on your desk last month. Darius went still. What are you saying? Imani turned around, her eyes meeting his. I'm saying accidents happen. Fires happen. Especially in old houses with bad wiring. Especially to pregnant women who can't move fast. She walked back to him, kneeling in front of him, her hands on his knees. I'm saying you could be free. We could be free. You could pay off all your debts, fund your campaign, and start fresh. With me. Darius stared at her, his heart pounding. You're crazy. No, baby. Imani smiled. I'm realistic. And I'm tired of waiting. She stood up and walked to her bedroom, leaving Darius sitting there in the dark, his mind racing. He should have walked out. He should have gone home to his wife. He should have chosen Naomi and the baby and the life they'd built together. But he didn't. 3 days later, Darius started planning. He told himself he was just thinking through possibilities, just exploring options. But every night he lay next to Naomi, listening to her breathe, watching her rub her belly in her sleep, and he thought about $3 million. He thought about freedom. He thought about Imani's body and her ambition and the life she promised him. He disabled the smoke detectors while Naomi was at the grocery store. He loosened the gas line behind the stove while she was at choir practice. He removed the battery from her phone while she showered. He made sure the neighbors were gone for the weekend. And on the night it all went down, he set up candles and wine on the dining room table, kissed Naomi on the forehead, and told her he'd be right back. I just need to run to the store real quick, he said. I forgot to grab something for dinner. Naomi smiled at him, her eyes full of love. Okay, baby. Hurry back. I'm making your favorite. Darius kissed her one last time. And then he walked out the door. He sat in his car 3 blocks away, his phone in his hand. Imani's text came through at exactly 7:43 p.m. Tonight. Darius typed back one word. Tonight. Inside the house, Naomi moved around the kitchen, completely unaware that gas was filling the room. She hummed along to Kirk Franklin, stirring her pot of gumbo, thinking about baby names and nursery colors and all the beautiful things coming her way. She lit a candle on the counter, the same candles Darius had set up earlier. The explosion was so loud it shook the entire block. The blast threw Naomi across the kitchen. Her body slammed into the wall and she fell hard, her head cracking against the tile floor. For a moment, everything went black. Then the pain hit. Sharp, burning, unbearable pain. Her arms. Her back. Her legs. The baby. Oh God, the baby. Flames were everywhere. The kitchen was an inferno. The living room was engulfed. Smoke poured through the house like a living thing, choking her, blinding her. Naomi tried to scream, but her lungs wouldn't work. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't hold her. So she crawled. One hand in front of the other, dragging her pregnant body across the burning floor. The heat was unbearable. She could feel her skin blistering, melting. She could smell her own hair burning. But she kept moving. She had to. For the baby. For her little girl who was kicking inside her, fighting to live. Help. Naomi's voice was barely a whisper. Somebody help me. Through the smoke she saw the front door. It was open. Just a few more feet. She could make it. She had to make it. And then she heard it. A voice outside. Darius's voice. By sunrise, she and that baby will be gone. We'll start fresh. Naomi froze. That voice. That cold, empty voice. She knew that voice. She loved that voice. That voice had promised her forever. She crawled to the doorway, her vision blurring, her body screaming in pain. And through the flames, through the smoke, she saw him. Darius. Standing on the sidewalk. Not running toward her. Not calling 911. Just standing there. Watching. And beside him a woman. Tall. Beautiful. Smiling. Naomi's heart shattered in that moment. Not from the fire. Not from the pain. But from the truth. The horrible, devastating truth. He did this. He wanted this. He chose this. Darius, Naomi whispered, her hand reaching toward him. Please. But he turned away. He put his arm around the woman beside him. And he walked toward his car. Naomi felt her body giving up. The smoke was too thick. The heat was too much. The baby had stopped kicking. She collapsed onto the floor, her hand still stretched toward the door, toward the husband who had left her to die. Not today, baby, she whispered to her daughter, tears streaming down her burned face. Not today. The ceiling collapsed. Darkness swallowed everything. And Naomi Garrett died. Or so they thought. 2 hours later, Darius sat in Imani's condo, a drink in his hand, watching the news. The reporter stood in front of his house, or what was left of it. Firefighters were still hosing down the smoldering remains. Yellow tape surrounded the property. Neighbors stood in clusters, crying, praying, talking about sweet Naomi and her baby. Authorities say the fire started in the kitchen, the reporter said. Investigators believe a gas leak may have been the cause. The victim, 29-year-old Naomi Carter, was 7 months pregnant. Her husband, Darius Carter, was not home at the time of the incident. The body has been recovered, but due to the severity of the burns, identification will require dental records. Imani sat beside Darius, her hand on his thigh. It's done. Darius nodded, staring at the screen. He felt nothing. No guilt. No sadness. No regret. Just relief. It was finally over. He was free. We need to wait a few months, Imani said. Let things cool down. Then we can start fresh. Darius turned to her and smiled. Yeah. Fresh start. They clinked their glasses together and drank. Neither of them noticed the shadow in the background of the news footage. A woman, older, pulling something from the rubble. Something that looked like a body. But it couldn't be. Naomi Garrett was dead. Burned beyond recognition. Gone. Forever. What Darius and Imani didn't know, what they couldn't have known as they celebrated in that high-rise condo, was that someone had been watching that night. Someone who had seen things that didn't add up. Someone who had made it her life's mission to notice what others missed. Evelyn Ward was 62 years old, retired from the Dallas Fire Department after 35 years of service. She'd been one of the first black women to make fire marshal in the state of Texas, and she hadn't gotten there by being careless. She'd gotten there by trusting her gut. And that night, walking her German Shepherd, Max, past the Garrett house at exactly 7:41 p.m., her gut had screamed that something was wrong. She'd seen Darius Carter sitting in his car 3 blocks down. Just sitting there. Staring at his phone. She'd thought it was odd at the time, a man sitting alone in his car on a Thursday evening, but she'd kept walking. Then 2 minutes later, she'd heard the explosion. She'd seen the fireball tear through the roof of the small bungalow. And she'd seen Darius Carter get out of his car, walk slowly toward the house, and make a phone call before he called 911. Not after. Before. While his pregnant wife was burning alive inside, he'd made a phone call. Evelyn had watched his face in the glow of the flames. No panic. No horror. No desperate attempt to run inside. Just cold calculation. When the firefighters arrived, Evelyn had stayed in the shadows. She'd watched the younger guys rush in with their hoses and their equipment. She'd watched them carry out what they thought was a body too burned to identify. And she'd watched Darius Carter cry for the cameras while a beautiful woman in a Mercedes watched from across the street. Something was wrong. Everything was wrong. After the fire trucks left, after the police cleared the scene, after the news crews packed up their equipment, Evelyn had gone back. It was close to midnight. The house was a burned-out shell, still smoking, still too hot to touch in most places. But Evelyn had spent 3 decades walking through fire scenes. She knew where to look. She knew what to check. And that's when she'd found her. In the far corner of what used to be the living room, behind a collapsed bookshelf, covered in ash and debris, was Naomi Garrett. Still breathing. Barely. Her body was so badly burned that Evelyn almost didn't recognize her as human. But her chest was moving. Up and down. Up and down. Fighting for every breath. "Oh, sweet Jesus," Evelyn whispered, dropping to her knees. She pressed 2 fingers against Naomi's neck. The pulse was weak, thready, but it was there. "Hold on, baby. Hold on." Evelyn knew she should call 911. Knew she should get this woman to a hospital immediately. But something stopped her. That phone call. Darius's face. The woman in the Mercedes. If someone had tried to kill Naomi once, they'd try again. And if she went to a hospital, if her name went into the system, if anyone knew she was alive, she'd be a sitting duck. So Evelyn made a choice. She dragged Naomi's body out of the rubble, loaded her into the back of her SUV, and drove to the one place she knew no one would find them. The safe house. A small cabin in rural East Texas that Evelyn's late husband had built 20 years ago. Off the grid. No neighbors for miles. Perfect for hiding. Perfect for saving a life. The drive took 2 hours. Naomi didn't wake up. Evelyn kept checking her pulse at every red light, every stop sign, praying she'd make it. When they finally arrived at the cabin, Evelyn carried Naomi inside and laid her on the bed. She'd been a firefighter, not a doctor, but she'd seen enough burn victims to know what to do. She cleaned the wounds as gently as she could, applied burn gel, wrapped Naomi in clean bandages, and started in 4 with supplies she kept in the cabin for emergencies. And then she waited. For 3 days, Naomi drifted in and out of consciousness. She'd mumble words Evelyn couldn't understand. She'd cry out for someone named Darius. She'd clutch her belly and scream, "My baby! Save my baby!" On the 4th day at 3:17 in the morning, Naomi went into labor. Evelyn had delivered babies before. Rural fire calls sometimes meant arriving before the ambulance, and she'd helped bring 6 children into the world during her career. But this was different. Naomi was unconscious. Her body was in shock. The baby was 2 months premature. And Evelyn was alone. "Come on, baby girl," Evelyn whispered, her hands steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "You fight. You hear me? You fight for your mama." The labor lasted 4 hours. 4 hours of Evelyn doing everything she could to keep both Naomi and the baby alive. 4 hours of praying harder than she'd ever prayed in her life. And at 7:23 a.m. as the sun rose over the East Texas pines, a baby girl came into the world. She was tiny. So tiny Evelyn could hold her in one hand. She wasn't breathing. Her skin was blue. For a horrible moment, Evelyn thought she'd lost her. But then Evelyn remembered her training. She cleared the baby's airway, rubbed her back, breathed into her tiny mouth. Once, twice, 3 times. And then the baby cried. It was the most beautiful sound Evelyn had ever heard. She wrapped the baby in a clean towel, held her close to keep her warm, and looked at Naomi, still unconscious on the bed. "Your baby's alive," Evelyn whispered. "She's a fighter just like you." But Naomi didn't wake up. And the baby needed more help than Evelyn could give. Evelyn made another impossible choice. She drove the baby to Dallas Children's Hospital, left her in a warming basket outside the emergency room entrance with a note that said, "Baby girl Carter. Born September 12th. Mother deceased. Please help her." Then she drove away, tears streaming down her face, praying she'd done the right thing. When she got back to the cabin, Naomi was seizing. Her body was rejecting the trauma. The burns were infected. She was dying. Evelyn spent the next 2 weeks fighting death itself. She called in favors from old colleagues who didn't ask questions. She got antibiotics, pain medication for fluids, anything that could help. She changed Naomi's bandages 3 times a day. She forced water and broth down her throat. She talked to her, read to her, prayed over her. And slowly, impossibly, Naomi started to heal. 3 months after the fire, Naomi Garrett opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was an unfamiliar ceiling. Wood beams. Soft morning light filtering through white curtains. The second thing she noticed was the pain. Her entire body felt like it was on fire. She tried to sit up and immediately collapsed back onto the bed, gasping. "Easy, easy," a voice said. A woman's voice. "Come. Strong. Don't try to move yet. Your body's been through hell." Naomi turned her head and saw her. An older black woman wearing a faded Dallas Fire Department t-shirt. Kind eyes. Worried eyes. Who are you? Naomi's voice came out as a croak. Her throat felt like sandpaper. My name is Evelyn Ward, the woman said, sitting down in a chair beside the bed. I pulled you out of a fire 3 months ago. You've been here healing. Fire. The word hit Naomi like a truck. Images flashed through her mind. Flames. Smoke. A man's voice. Darius. And then, nothing. My baby, Naomi whispered, her hand moving to her stomach. It was flat. Empty. Panic seized her chest. Where's my baby? What happened to my baby? Evelyn's face softened. Your baby is alive. She's beautiful. She's healthy. But you were in a coma when you delivered and she was premature. I had to take her to the hospital. She's in foster care now, safe under the name Baby Girl Carter. Naomi started crying. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. I want my baby. Please. I need my baby. I know, Evelyn said gently. And when you wake up, when you're strong enough, I'll help you find her. I promise you that. Naomi tried to remember more. The fire. How did the fire start? She'd been cooking. She'd lit a candle. And then, explosion. Bang. Crawling. The door. And Darius. Standing outside. Watching her burn. With another woman. But that couldn't be right. That had to be the trauma talking. Darius loved her. Darius would never. My husband, Naomi said suddenly. Darius. Where is he? Does he know I'm alive? Evelyn's jaw tightened. She'd been dreading this conversation. Naomi, I need you to listen to me very carefully. The fire that almost killed you wasn't an accident. Someone wanted you dead. I saw your husband that night. I saw him sitting in his car, waiting. I saw him make a phone call before he called for help. And I saw him walk away with another woman while you burned. No. Naomi shook her head. No, you're wrong. Darius wouldn't. Someone wanted you dead, Evelyn repeated, her voice firm. And I'm not letting them finish the job. As far as the world knows, Naomi Garrett died in that fire. Her body was burned beyond identification. There was a funeral. Your husband collected your life insurance. $3 million. The room started spinning. Naomi couldn't breathe. $3 million. Life insurance. Darius collected it. Which meant Darius thought she was dead. Which meant Darius wanted her dead. I don't understand, Naomi whispered. Why would he do this? We were happy. We were having a baby. We were. I don't know why, Evelyn said. But I know what I saw. And I know you're not safe. Not yet. Not until we figure out what really happened and who wanted you gone. Naomi looked down at her hands. They were covered in scars. Thick, raised keloids that ran up her arms, across her chest. She touched her face and felt the same rough texture. She was burned. Badly burned. She wasn't Naomi anymore. Not the Naomi everyone knew. What do I do? Naomi asked, her voice breaking. How do I live now? Evelyn reached over and took Naomi's scarred hand in hers. You survive. You get strong. You find your daughter. And then you decide what comes next. But right now, Naomi Garrett is dead. And she needs to stay dead until we know you're safe. Then who am I? Evelyn pulled something from her pocket. A melted baby bracelet. The metal had warped in the fire, but 3 letters were still visible. And what? You're Nia Ward, Evelyn said softly. My niece. And as long as they think you're dead, you're safe. Naomi, no Nia, stared at the bracelet in her hand. Everything she'd been was gone. Her name. Her face. Her husband. Her baby. Her life. But she was alive. And somewhere in Dallas, her daughter was alive too. Teach me, Nia whispered, her eyes meeting Evelyn's. Teach me everything. Because when I'm ready, I'm going back. And I'm finding out the truth. Evelyn smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was something fierce behind it. Then let's get to work. The rehabilitation was brutal. For the first month, Nia couldn't walk more than a few steps without collapsing. Her lungs had been damaged by smoke inhalation. Her muscles had atrophied during the coma. The burns on her legs made every movement agony. But Evelyn pushed her. Every single day. Again, Evelyn would say when Nia fell. Get up and try again. I can't, Nia would cry. You can, Evelyn would insist. Because your daughter needs you. And you're not going to let those people win. So Nia got up. Again and again and again. She walked. Then she climbed stairs. Then she ran. She learned to control the panic attacks that came every time she smelled smoke. She learned to sleep without screaming. She learned to look at her scars and see survival instead of shame. And while her body healed, Evelyn taught her everything else. Fire dynamics, burn patterns, how to tell the difference between accidental fires and arson, how to read people, how to investigate, how to think like someone who hunts down the truth. If you're going back into that world, Evelyn said, you need to go back smart. You need to go back dangerous. But there was still one problem. Nia couldn't remember everything. The trauma had fractured her memory. She remembered the fire. She remembered the pain. But everything before that was foggy. Faces without names. Voices without context. She knew Darius had betrayed her, but she couldn't remember why. She knew there was another woman, but she couldn't see her face. The only memory that stayed clear was the feeling. The feeling of being left to die. The feeling of choosing death over fighting. And then, at the last second, choosing to fight anyway. For her baby. For the little girl who was out there somewhere, growing up without her. I'm coming for you, Nia would whisper every night before she fell asleep. Mama's coming. 3 months became 6 months. 6 months became a year. A year became 2. And slowly Nia Ward became someone new. Someone stronger. Someone smarter. Someone who would never be a victim again. But she still didn't know who had taken everything from her. She still didn't have all the pieces. Until one afternoon 4 years after the fire, when everything changed. Nia was in the cabin, working on a fire investigation case study for the certification exam she was preparing for, when Evelyn called her into the living room. Turn on the news, Evelyn said, her voice tight. Channel 8. Now. Nia grabbed the remote and switched to the local Dallas station. And there, filling the screen, was a face she would never forget. Darius Carter. Older. More polished. Wearing an expensive suit. Standing at a podium with the Dallas city skyline behind him. Today, I'm officially announcing my candidacy for Dallas City Council, District 7, Darius said, his voice smooth and confident. 4 years ago, I lost everything in a tragic fire. My wife, Naomi, and our unborn daughter. That loss changed me. It made me realize how fragile life is and how important it is to serve our community, to make sure every family has a safe place to call home. The camera panned to show a woman standing beside him. Beautiful. Sophisticated. Wearing a cream-colored designer dress and a diamond ring that caught the light. My wife, Imani Carter, and I are committed to building a better Dallas. A safer Dallas. A Dallas where tragedies like the one that took Naomi's life never happen again. Imani stepped up to the microphone, her hand resting on Darius's arm. We've turned our pain into purpose, she said, her voice steady. And we're ready to serve this city we love. The screen showed their official campaign photo. Darius and Imani. The perfect power couple. Smiling. Successful. Thriving. Built on Naomi's grave. The remote fell from Nia's hand. The room started spinning. And suddenly, like a dam breaking, the memories came flooding back. Everything. The late nights. The cologne. The payments to IR Enterprises. Imani Rhodes. The nightclub promoter. The mistress. The woman who had pushed Darius to choose. The woman who had stood outside the burning house, smiling while Naomi crawled through flames. The woman who had everything that should have been hers. Nia collapsed to her knees, screaming. Not from pain. From rage. From grief. From the horrible, devastating truth. My baby, she sobbed. Where is my baby? What did they do with my baby? Evelyn knelt beside her, holding her as she fell apart. We'll find her, Evelyn promised. I swear to you we'll find her. But Nia wasn't listening anymore. She was staring at the television screen, at Darius and Imani's smiling faces, and something inside her crystallized. Something cold. Something deadly. They had tried to kill her. They had taken her daughter. They had stolen her life. And now they were profiting from her death. But Naomi Garrett was dead. Nia Ward was not. And Nia Ward was coming for everything they'd taken. The next morning, Nia stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at the stranger looking back at her. The burns had healed as much as they ever would. The scars ran down the left side of her face, across her neck, down her arms. They were part of her now. A permanent reminder of the night she died and was reborn. But it was her eyes that had changed the most. They weren't soft anymore. They weren't trusting. They were the eyes of someone who had crawled through hell and survived. We need to find my daughter first, Nia said, walking into the kitchen where Evelyn sat with a laptop and a stack of files. Before I do anything else, I need to know she's safe. Evelyn nodded. I've been working on that. The adoption records are sealed, but I still have connections in the system. Give me a few days. I don't have a few days, Nia said, her voice sharp. They've had 4 years with my life. 4 years building their perfect little world on my grave. I'm not waiting anymore. Then what's your plan? Evelyn asked, looking up at her. Storm into Dallas and demand answers? They think you're dead, Nia. That's your only advantage. You lose that and you lose everything. Nia sat down across from her, her mind racing. Evelyn was right. She couldn't just show up and confront them. She needed a strategy. She needed to get close to them without them knowing who she was. She needed to become someone they would want in their lives. And then, like a lightning bolt, it hit her. The campaign, Nia said slowly. Darius is running on a platform of housing safety and fire prevention. He's using my death to get elected. Right? Evelyn said. So he's going to need experts. Fire safety consultants. People who can legitimize his platform. People who understand trauma and survival. Nia's eyes met Evelyn's. People like me. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, a slow smile spreading across her face. You want to work for him. I want to get close to him, Nia corrected. Close enough to find out what really happened that night. Close enough to find my daughter. Close enough to destroy him. That's dangerous, Evelyn warned. If he recognizes you. He won't, Nia interrupted. Look at me, Evelyn. I don't look like Naomi anymore. My face is different. My body is different. My voice is different from the smoke damage. I've spent 4 years becoming someone else. And Darius isn't looking for a ghost. He thinks I'm dead. He's not going to see what's right in front of him. Evelyn studied her for a long moment. You'll need credentials. A background. A whole new identity that can stand up to scrutiny. Then build me one, Nia said. You've been training me for 4 years. Make me legitimate. Over the next 3 days, Evelyn worked her contacts. By the end of the week, Nia Ward had a complete background. Bachelor's degree in fire science from Texas A&M. Master's in trauma psychology from UT Austin. Published articles on fire survival and PTSD. A TED Talk about rising from the ashes that had gone viral. She was exactly the kind of expert a city council candidate would want on his team. One more thing, Evelyn said, handing Nia a business card. Dr. Patricia Morrison. She's a therapist who specializes in trauma. She's also an old friend who owes me a favor. If anyone asks, you've been her patient for the last 2 years. She'll back up your story. Nia looked at the card, then at Evelyn. Why are you doing this? You could get in serious trouble for helping me. Evelyn's expression softened. Because 30 years ago someone tried to kill me too. My ex-husband. He set fire to my apartment while I was sleeping. I survived. He went to prison. But nobody believed me at first. Everyone thought it was an accident. Everyone except one fire marshal who saw what I saw and helped me prove the truth. She reached over and squeezed Nia's hand. I'm paying it forward. And besides, I've seen enough corrupt men get away with murder. Not this time. 2 weeks later, Nia stood outside the campaign headquarters for Darius Carter in downtown Dallas. The building was sleek, modern, all glass and steel. A banner hung across the front, Carter for Council, building a safer Dallas. Nia's stomach twisted. She could still turn around. She could walk away. She could find her daughter some other way. But she thought about Darius's face on the television. Thought about him collecting $3 million in insurance money while she fought for her life in a cabin in the woods. Thought about him standing at that podium with his new wife, using Naomi's death as a campaign strategy. No, there was no turning back. She walked through the front door. The office was buzzing with activity. Young campaign volunteers rushed around with clipboards and phones. A receptionist sat at the front desk, typing rapidly on her computer. Behind her, photos of Darius covered the walls. Darius at community events. Darius with seniors. Darius at the site of a burned-down building, hard hat on, looking concerned and mayoral. Can I help you? The receptionist asked, looking up with a bright smile. Yes, Nia said, her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. My name is Dr. Nia Ward. I'm a fire behavior specialist and trauma psychologist. I'd like to volunteer my expertise for Mr. Carter's housing safety initiative. The receptionist's eyes lit up. Oh, wonderful. Mr. Carter has been looking for experts in that field. Let me see if he's available. She picked up the phone. Mr. Carter? There's a Dr. Nia Ward here to see you. She's a fire specialist. Yes, I'll send her back. She hung up and gestured toward a hallway. Last door on the right. He's excited to meet you. Nia's legs felt like lead as she walked down that hallway. 4 years. 4 years of preparation. 4 years of dreaming about this moment. And now it was here. She knocked on the door. "Come in." Darius's voice called out. Nia opened the door and stepped inside. And there he was. Darius Carter. The man who had been her husband. The man who had promised to love her forever. The man who had left her to burn alive. He was sitting behind a large desk, wearing a crisp white shirt and burgundy tie. He looked older. More distinguished. There were a few gray hairs at his temples that hadn't been there before. But it was definitely him. The same smile. The same eyes. The same man who had destroyed her life. He stood up and extended his hand. "Dr. Ward, thank you so much for coming. We need people like you on this campaign." Nia shook his hand. His grip was firm, confident. He looked directly into her eyes, and for one terrifying moment she thought he knew. Thought he recognized her. Thought it was all over. But then he smiled and gestured to a chair. "Please sit down. Tell me about your work." He didn't know. He was looking right at her and he didn't know. Nia sat down, keeping her breathing steady, her expression professional. "I specialize in fire behavior and the psychological impact of fire-related trauma. I survived a major fire myself several years ago, which led me to this work. I help survivors rebuild their lives while also consulting on fire prevention and safety protocols." Darius's expression became somber. "I understand loss from fire all too well. 4 years ago, I lost my first wife and our unborn daughter in a house fire. It was the worst night of my life." Liar, Nia thought. Murderer. But her face remained sympathetic. "I'm so sorry for your loss. That must have been devastating." "It was," Darius said, his voice heavy with false emotion. "But it's also what drives me now. I want to make sure no family has to go through what I went through. That's why housing safety is the cornerstone of my campaign." "That's a beautiful mission," Nia said, each word tasting like poison in her mouth. "And I'd like to help however I can." Darius leaned forward, his eyes lighting up. "Actually, I'm putting together a housing safety task force. Community leaders, fire experts, architects, engineers. We're going to do a full audit of high-risk housing in District 7 and create actionable recommendations. Would you be interested in joining?" "Absolutely," Nia said. "Excellent." Darius stood up and walked around his desk. "Let me introduce you to my wife. She's the real brains behind this operation. Imani." The door opened and she walked in. Imani Rhodes. No, Imani Carter now. She was even more beautiful in person than she'd been on television. Tall, elegant, wearing a navy blue pantsuit that probably cost more than Naomi's entire catering business had made in a year. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek bun, and diamond studs sparkled in her ears. This was the woman who had stolen her life. "Baby, this is Dr. Nia Ward," Darius said, putting his arm around Imani's waist. "She's a fire specialist who's going to join our task force." Imani's eyes swept over Nia, assessing, calculating. For a moment, Nia saw something flicker across her face. Suspicion? Recognition? But then it was gone, replaced by a polished smile. "Dr. Ward," Imani said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "Welcome to the team. We're thrilled to have you." Nia shook her hand. The woman's grip was cold. "Thank you. I'm excited to contribute to such an important cause." Nia survived a major fire herself, Darius added. She understands the trauma firsthand. Imani's smile didn't reach her eyes. "How fortunate that you survived. Not everyone is so lucky." She glanced at Darius meaningfully. "As we know all too well." "Yes," Nia said softly. "Not everyone survives. But sometimes the ones who do come back stronger than before." Something passed between them in that moment. A silent challenge. Imani's eyes narrowed slightly, studying Nia's face, her scars, her posture. Nia held her gaze, unflinching. "Well," Darius said, oblivious to the tension. "Our first task force meeting is this Thursday at 6 p.m. Can you make it?" "I'll be there," Nia said, standing up. "Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Carter." "Mrs. Carter. Please call me Darius," he said, walking her to the door. "We're all family here." Family. The word was a knife in Nia's chest. But she smiled and nodded and walked out of that office without looking back. She made it to her car before her hands started shaking. She gripped the steering wheel, breathing deeply, fighting the urge to scream. She'd done it. She'd stood in the same room with them, shaken their hands, looked into their eyes, and they had no idea who she was. Her phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. "How did it go?" Nia typed back, "I'm in." But as she pulled out of the parking lot, she didn't notice the car that had been parked across the street. Didn't see the man in the driver's seat, watching her through dark sunglasses, a phone pressed to his ear. "Yeah, it's me," the man said into the phone. "You were right to be paranoid. That Dr. Ward woman? Something's off about her. I'm running her background now." He paused, listening. "Don't worry, Mrs. Carter. If she's not who she says she is, I'll find out. That's what you pay me for." He hung up and took a photo of Nia's license plate as she drove away. Inside the campaign office, Imani stood at the window watching Dr. Ward's car disappear into traffic. Darius had gone back to his desk, already on another phone call, completely unconcerned. But Imani couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That woman's eyes. The way she'd looked at Darius. The way she'd said, "Sometimes the ones who do come back stronger than before." Imani pulled out her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in 6 months. "Silas," she said when he answered. "I need you to do something for me." "I'm listening," said the voice on the other end. Silas Rhodes. Imani's childhood friend. Former arson investigator turned private fixer. The man who cleaned up problems that needed to stay buried. "There's a woman," Imani said. "Dr. Nia Ward. She just joined Darius's campaign. Run a full background check. And I mean full. I want to know everything about her. Where she came from. Where she's been. Everything." "You think she's a problem?" Silas asked. "I think she's familiar," Imani said slowly. "And familiar is dangerous." "Give me 48 hours, Silas said. "If there's anything to find, I'll find it." Imani hung up and stared at her reflection in the window. She'd worked too hard to get here. Sacrificed too much. She wasn't about to let some scarred-up fire expert ruin everything. But deep down, in a place she didn't like to acknowledge, Imani felt something she hadn't felt in 4 years. Fear. Because if Naomi Garrett had somehow survived that fire, if she had somehow come back, then everything Imani had built was about to burn to the ground. And this time there would be no escaping the flames. 48 hours later, Nia sat in a coffee shop 3 blocks from the campaign office, her laptop open in front of her, pretending to work. But her mind was racing. The task force meeting was tonight. She'd be in the same room with Darius and Imani for 2 hours. She needed to stay focused. Stay calm. Stay invisible. Her phone buzzed. Evelyn. Found her. Nia's heart stopped. She called Evelyn immediately. "What did you say?" "Your daughter," Evelyn said, her voice tight with emotion. "I found her. Her name is Harper. Harper Bennett. She's 4 years old. She was adopted by Marcus and Jennifer Bennett, a couple in North Dallas. They own a bookstore. Good people, Nia. Really good people." Nia couldn't breathe. 4 years old. Her baby was 4 years old. She'd missed everything. First steps. First words. First birthday. Everything. "Where is she?" Nia whispered. "I'm texting you the address now," Evelyn said. "But Nia, listen to me. You can't just show up. You can't disrupt her life until you know what you're doing. She's happy. She's safe. She doesn't know you." "She's my daughter," Nia said, tears streaming down her face. "I know," Evelyn said gently. "But right now she's their daughter too. And if you want her back in your life, you need to do this right. Finish what you started with Darius and Imani. Get justice. Get the truth. And then we'll figure out how to reunite you with your little girl. I promise." Nia hung up and stared at the address on her phone. 2847 Meadowbrook Lane. Her daughter was living on Meadowbrook Lane. Just 15 minutes away. She stood up, grabbed her keys and drove. She couldn't help it. She had to see her. The Bennett home was a modest 2-story house with a white picket fence and a garden full of sunflowers. A swing set sat in the backyard. A small pink bicycle with training wheels leaned against the front porch. And there, in the front yard, was a little girl. Nia's breath caught in her throat. Harper. She had Nia's nose. Nia's chin. But her eyes were all Darius. Big and brown and curious. She wore a yellow sundress and was drawing on the sidewalk with chalk, her tongue sticking out in concentration. A woman came out of the house. Mid-30s, blonde, kind face. Jennifer Bennett. She sat down next to Harper and said something that made the little girl laugh. The sound of that laugh broke Nia's heart and healed it all at once. Nia sat in her car across the street, tears pouring down her face, watching her daughter play. She wanted to run over there. Wanted to scoop Harper up and never let her go. Wanted to tell her, "I'm your mama. I never stopped fighting to get back to you." But Evelyn was right. Harper was happy. Safe. Love. And Nia couldn't disrupt that. Not yet. Not until she finished this. She took one last look at her little girl, whispered, "Mama's here, baby. Mama's here," and drove away. That night, Nia walked into the task force meeting with steel in her spine and ice in her veins. The conference room was filled with people. Architects, engineers, community leaders, fire inspectors. And at the head of the table sat Darius and Imani. Everyone settle down, Darius said, standing up. Thank you all for being here. Tonight we're going to talk about real change in our community. No more families torn apart by preventable fires. No more children losing parents. No more tragedies like the one that took my first wife and daughter. Nia watched him perform. Watched him use Naomi's death to earn sympathy and votes. Watched him lie with such conviction that she almost believed him herself. The meeting lasted 2 hours. They discussed building codes, smoke detector programs, fire escape plans for low-income housing. Nia contributed when appropriate, offering expertise, asking intelligent questions, building credibility. She could feel Imani watching her throughout the meeting, studying her, searching for something. When it was over, people lingered, networking, exchanging business cards. Nia was packing up her laptop when Darius approached her. Dr. Ward, that was impressive, he said. Your insights about fire psychology, about how trauma affects decision-making during emergencies, that's exactly what we need. Thank you, Nia said. I've lived it. I know what it's like to make impossible choices when everything is burning around you. Darius's expression became sympathetic. Can I ask what happened to you? Your fire? Nia had prepared for this question. Had practiced the lie 100 times. House fire. 5 years ago. I was trapped on the 2nd floor. Had to jump from a window. Broke both legs, 3rd-degree burns on 40% of my body. Spent 8 months in recovery. That's horrific, Darius said. I'm so sorry. Don't be, Nia said, looking directly into his eyes. It made me who I am today. Stronger. More determined. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes your greatest gift. Something flickered across Darius's face. Discomfort? Guilt? It was gone in an instant. Well, I'm glad you're using your experience to help others, he said. We're having a fundraiser next Friday at the Rosewood Hotel. I'd love for you to come. Bring a guest if you'd like. I'll be there, Nia said. As Darius walked away, Imani appeared at Nia's elbow. Dr. Ward, may I have a word? Privately? Nia's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression neutral. Of course. They walked out to the hallway. Imani closed the door behind them and turned to face Nia. Up close, Nia could see the calculation in her eyes. The suspicion. I need to ask you something, Imani said, her voice low. And I need you to be honest with me. Okay, Nia said. Have we met before? Before this week? Nia's heart hammered, but she kept her face blank. No, I don't think so. Why? You seem familiar, Imani said, taking a step closer. Your voice. Your mannerisms. Something about you reminds me of someone. I get that a lot, Nia said calmly. Apparently I have one of those faces. She gestured to her scars. Well, I used to, anyway. Imani studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Of course. I'm sorry. Just, my husband lost his first wife in a fire, and sometimes I see her everywhere. Grief does strange things to perception. I understand, Nia said. Trauma creates patterns where there are none. It's a coping mechanism. You sound like a therapist, Imani said. I have a degree in trauma psychology, Nia replied. Goes hand in hand with fire survival work. Imani nodded slowly, still watching Nia like a hawk studying prey. Well, Dr. Ward, I look forward to getting to know you better. See you at the fundraiser. She walked away, leaving Nia standing alone in the hallway, her hands shaking. Imani knew. She didn't know she knew, but something in her gut was screaming danger. And that made everything more complicated. Nia pulled out her phone and texted Evelyn, "We need to move faster. She's suspicious." 3 days later, Silas Rhodes sat in Imani's condo, a manila folder on the coffee table between them. "Tell me," Imani said, pouring herself a glass of wine with trembling hands. Silas opened the folder. Dr. Nia Ward. Born in Houston supposedly. Degrees from Texas A&M and UT Austin. Published fire safety expert. Everything checks out on paper. But, Imani pressed. But there's nothing on her before 5 years ago, Silas said. No childhood records. No high school transcripts. No social media presence before 2021. It's like she didn't exist until after your husband's wife died. The wine glass slipped from Imani's hand, shattering on the marble floor. What are you saying? I'm saying either Dr. Ward completely reinvented herself 5 years ago, or she's not who she claims to be, Silas said. And here's the interesting part. Her social security number was issued 4 years ago. Not at birth. 4 years ago. Imani's face went white. That's impossible. It's not impossible if someone with connections helped her, Silas said. If someone, say, a retired fire marshal with access to city records, wanted to create a new identity for someone. Oh my God, Imani whispered. It's her. It's Naomi. That's impossible, Silas said. We saw the body. It was burned beyond recognition, but the DNA. We never ran DNA, Imani snapped. The body was so badly burned they used dental records. But what if those records were wrong? What if someone switched them? Silas leaned back, processing this. If Naomi survived, if she's been planning this for 4 years, then we're in trouble, Imani finished. Because she knows everything. And she's been getting close to Darius, to the campaign, to our entire life. What do you want me to do? Silas asked. Imani's jaw tightened. I want you to prove it. Give me something concrete. A fingerprint. A DNA sample. Something that proves Dr. Nia Ward is actually Naomi Garrett. And then. She paused. Then we finish what we started 4 years ago. You want me to kill her? Silas asked flatly. I want you to protect my family, Imani said. By any means necessary. The fundraiser at the Rosewood Hotel was exactly what Nia expected. Rich donors in expensive suits and designer dresses, drinking champagne and writing checks. Darius worked the room like a politician born to it, shaking hands, kissing babies, making promises he'd never keep. Imani stood beside him, the perfect political wife, smiling and charming and hiding the panic Nia knew was eating her alive. Nia wore a simple black dress that covered most of her scars and had her hair pulled back. She moved through the crowd, listening to conversations, gathering information. And that's when she saw her. Across the room, standing with a man and woman Nia recognized from the adoption file photos. Marcus and Jennifer Bennett. And between them, holding Jennifer's hand and wearing a pink dress with a bow, was Harper. Nia's daughter was here. At Darius's fundraiser. Her vision tunneled. Her chest tightened. She couldn't breathe. Dr. Ward. Darius's voice cut through her panic. He was walking toward her with the Bennetts and Harper. I want you to meet some very special supporters. Marcus and Jennifer Bennett, this is Dr. Nia Ward, our fire safety expert. Nia forced herself to breathe. Forced herself to smile. Forced herself not to grab Harper and run. Pleasure to meet you, Marcus said, shaking her hand. He was a kind-looking man, African-American, mid-40s, with glasses and a warm smile. We're huge supporters of Darius's housing safety initiative, Jennifer added. We actually have a personal connection to it. Our daughter Harper was orphaned in a house fire 4 years ago. We adopted her when she was just a few months old. Nia's knees nearly gave out. She looked down at Harper, who was staring up at her with those big brown eyes. Hi, Harper said softly. Hi, sweetheart, Nia whispered, her voice breaking. Harper draws a lot, Jennifer said, laughing. Show Dr. Ward what you drew today, baby. Harper pulled a folded piece of paper from her little purse and handed it to Nia. Nia unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a drawing of a woman. A woman with long black hair and a round belly, surrounded by orange and red flames. And standing next to the woman was a little girl, reaching out her hand. That's my first mommy, Harper said quietly. I dream about her sometimes. She had fire around her. But she was trying to reach me. Nia's eyes filled with tears. She knelt down to Harper's level, not caring that people were watching. That's a beautiful drawing, Harper. Your first mommy would be so proud of you. Do you think she can see me? Harper asked. From heaven? Yes, Nia said, touching Harper's cheek gently. I think she sees you every single day. And I think she loves you more than anything in the world. Harper smiled and hugged Nia suddenly, her little arms wrapping around Nia's neck. Nia closed her eyes, holding her daughter for the first time in 4 years, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo, feeling her tiny heartbeat against her chest. Harper seems to really like you, Jennifer said, surprised. She's usually shy with strangers. Some people just connect, Marcus added. Across the room, Imani was watching the entire scene with narrowed eyes. The way Dr. Ward was holding Harper. The way she was crying. The way she was looking at that child like she was the most precious thing in the world. And suddenly Imani knew with absolute certainty. That wasn't Dr. Nia Ward. That was Naomi Garrett. And she was looking at her daughter. Imani pulled out her phone and texted Silas, It's her. I'm sure now. Do it tonight. Harper pulled back from the hug and looked up at Nia. Will I see you again? Yes, baby, Nia whispered. I promise you will. Darius appeared at Nia's shoulder. Dr. Ward, I hate to interrupt, but I need you to meet some potential donors. Nia stood up reluctantly, her eyes never leaving Harper. It was wonderful to meet you all. As she walked away with Darius, she didn't see Silas Rhodes entering the hotel. Didn't see him watching her from across the lobby. Didn't see him following her at a distance. An hour later, Nia said her goodbyes and walked to the parking garage. It was nearly 10 p.m. Most of the guests had left. The garage was quiet, dimly lit, and almost empty. She was halfway to her car when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned. Silas Rhodes stood 15 feet away, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. Dr. Ward, he said calmly. Or should I call you Naomi? Nia's blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, Silas said, walking closer. My sister sent me. See, Imani's smart. She knew something was wrong the moment she met you. And me? I'm good at finding the truth. You're not Nia Ward. You're Naomi Garrett. And you were supposed to die 4 years ago. Nia backed up against her car. If you're going to kill me, just do it. But know that if I don't check in with someone in the next hour, everything I know goes to the police. Every text. Every recorded conversation. Every piece of evidence. Silas smiled. You're bluffing. Try me, Nia said. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Silas pulled his hand from his pocket. He was holding a syringe. Here's what's going to happen, Silas said. You're going to get into my car. We're going to take a little drive. And then you're going to disappear. Again. Except this time you'll actually be dead. Nia's mind raced. She had no weapon. No way to fight him. He was bigger, stronger, trained. This was it. This was how it ended. But then she remembered what Evelyn had taught her. When you can't fight, you run. And when you can't run, you scream. Nia screamed. At the top of her lungs. A piercing, terrified scream that echoed through the parking garage. Silas lunged forward, trying to cover her mouth, but Nia fought back. She kicked, clawed, bit, anything to stay alive. The syringe fell from his hand and shattered on the concrete. Help! Nia screamed. Somebody help me. And then, like an angel from heaven, headlights flooded the garage. A car screeched to a stop. Evelyn jumped out, a gun in her hand. Back away from her. Evelyn shouted. Now. Silas froze, his hands raised. Lady, you don't want to do this. Yes, I do, Evelyn said coldly. I'm a licensed concealed carry holder, and I just witnessed an attempted assault. The police are already on their way. In the distance, sirens wailed. Silas looked at Nia, then at Evelyn, then at the approaching police lights. He bolted, running toward the exit, disappearing into the night. Nia collapsed against her car, shaking. Evelyn ran to her, pulling her into a tight hug. It's okay, Evelyn whispered. I've got you. You're safe. 2 police officers arrived minutes later. Nia gave a statement. Assault by an unknown man in the parking garage. He ran before she could see his face clearly. The officers took notes, told her they'd review security footage, told her to be careful. After they left, Evelyn drove Nia back to the cabin. Neither of them spoke for the entire drive. When they got inside, Nia finally broke down, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. I saw her, Nia cried. I held my daughter. And she doesn't even know who I am. She will, Evelyn promised. When this is over, she'll know exactly who you are. It's never going to be over, Nia said. They're going to keep coming after me. They know who I am now. It's over. No, Evelyn said firmly. It's not over. It's just beginning. Because now they've made a mistake. They sent Silas after you. He assaulted you. That's a crime. That's evidence. That's the crack in their armor we've been waiting for. Nia looked up at her. What are you saying? I'm saying it's time to stop playing defense, Evelyn said. It's time to go on the attack. We have everything we need. Your testimony. The insurance fraud. The attempted murder tonight. We just need to get them to confess. We need to get them on tape admitting what they did. How? Nia asked. Evelyn smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a woman who had been waiting for this moment for 4 years. We set a trap, Evelyn said. And we use you as bait. The next morning, Nia sent an email to Darius from her Dr. Nia Ward account. Mr. Carter, I need to speak with you urgently about a personal matter related to the fire that killed your first wife. I have information you need to hear. Can we meet tonight at your campaign office? 8 p.m. Come alone. This is sensitive. Darius read the email 3 times, his hands shaking. Information about Naomi's fire? What information? How could this Dr. Ward know anything? He forwarded the email to Imani. This is it, Imani texted back. She knows. Silas failed. We need to handle this ourselves. That night at 7:45 p.m., Darius stood in his empty campaign office, waiting. Imani was on her way. They'd discussed the plan. If Dr. Ward tried to blackmail them, they'd pay her off. If she threatened to go to the police, they'd handle it. Together. The way they'd handled everything else. At 8 p.m. exactly, Nia walked through the door. She looked different tonight. Harder. Colder. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her scars were fully visible. And her eyes held something Darius had never seen before. Rage. Dr. Ward, Darius said, trying to sound casual. Thank you for coming. What's this about? Nia walked slowly into the office, her eyes never leaving his face. I think you know what this is about, Darius? The use of his first name sent a chill down his spine. I'm not sure I. Let me help you, Nia said, her voice eerily calm. 4 years ago, you took out a $3 million life insurance policy on your wife. 2 months later, you started sleeping with your nightclub promoter Mistress. 1 month after that, you loosened the gas line in your kitchen, disabled the smoke detectors, and set up a romantic evening that you knew would end in an explosion. Darius's face went white. What are you talking about? Who are you? You left your 7 months pregnant wife to burn alive, Nia continued, taking another step closer. You stood outside and watched the house burn. You called your mistress before you called 911. And then you collected the insurance money and married the woman you killed for. That's insane, Darius said, backing up. You're insane. I loved Naomi. I would never. Don't you dare say her name. Nia screamed, her composure finally breaking. Don't you dare speak my name with the same mouth that told me you loved me while you were planning my murder. Darius froze. Your name? What are you? It's me, Darius, Nia said, tears streaming down her scarred face. It's Naomi. The wife you tried to kill. The woman you left to die. I survived. And I came back for everything you took from me. Darius's legs gave out. He collapsed into his chair, staring at her like he was seeing a ghost. Because he was. No, he whispered. No, you're dead. The body. The funeral. You're dead. I should be dead, Naomi said. You did everything right. The gas leak, the explosion, the fire. It should have killed me. But someone pulled me out. Someone saved me. And then I spent 4 years becoming strong enough to come back and destroy you. The office door burst open. Imani stood there, her face twisted with fury. I knew it. I knew you were alive. Hello, Imani, Naomi said coldly. Or should I say Mrs. Carter? How does it feel wearing a dead woman's life? How does it feel being dead? Imani shot back, pulling a gun from her purse. Because that's what you should be. That's what you're going to be. Darius jumped up. Imani put the gun down. This is crazy. Crazy? Imani laughed. She came back, Darius. She's been playing us this whole time. She knows everything. I do know everything, Naomi said. I know you pushed him to kill me. I know you wanted my insurance money. I know you celebrated while I was crawling through fire trying to save our baby. Your baby's gone, Imani said cruelly. She's someone else's daughter now. She doesn't even know you exist. Wrong, Naomi said. Harper knows I exist. She dreams about me. She draws pictures of me. And soon, very soon, she's going to know exactly who her real mother is. That will never happen, Imani said, raising the gun. Because you're not leaving this office alive. Imani, no. Darius shouted. Put it down. Why? Imani screamed at him. She's going to destroy us. She's going to take everything. I'm not going to prison because you couldn't finish the job the first time. Actually, a voice said from the doorway, you're both going to prison. Everyone turned. Evelyn stood there with 2 police detectives. And in her hand, she held up her phone, which had been recording the entire conversation. Every word, Evelyn said. Every confession. The insurance fraud. The murder attempt. All of it. Imani's gun hand wavered. No. No, this can't be happening. Put the gun down, Mrs. Carter, one of the detectives said, his hand on his weapon. It's over. It's not over. Imani screamed, turning the gun on Naomi. If I'm going down, she's going with me. The gunshot rang out. But it wasn't from Imani's gun. It was from the detectives. Imani fell to the ground, clutching her shoulder, screaming. The gun clattered away from her. Darius ran to her, crying, trying to stop the bleeding. Officers rushed in, securing the scene. Paramedics were called. And through it all, Naomi stood frozen, watching the two people who had destroyed her life finally face justice. "It's done," Evelyn said softly, putting her arm around Naomi. "It's finally done." But Naomi didn't feel relief. She felt empty. Hollow. Because justice didn't bring back the 4 years she'd lost. It didn't give her back the baby she'd carried. It didn't erase the scars on her body and soul. As the police led Darius away in handcuffs, he looked back at Naomi one last time. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Naomi." "Sorry doesn't bring back what you took from me," Naomi said. "But watching you lose everything you stole? That's a start." 6 months later, the trial was the biggest news story in Dallas. Darius Carter and Imani Rhodes Carter were charged with attempted murder, insurance fraud, arson, and conspiracy. Silas was charged as an accomplice for his attack on Naomi in the parking garage. The courtroom was packed. Every news station had cameras outside. And when Naomi Garrett took the stand, the entire city held its breath. She told her story. Every painful detail. The marriage. The betrayal. The fire. The crawl through flames. The moment she realized her husband wanted her dead. The 4 years of rebuilding herself. And the moment she held her daughter again, not as a stranger, but as her mother. "He didn't just try to kill me," Naomi said, her voice steady and strong. "He tried to kill our daughter. She survived because I fought to keep her alive even when I thought I was dying. And now, for years later, she's the reason I fought to bring him to justice." The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Darius was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Imani received 25 years. Silas got 15. When the verdict was read, Imani collapsed in her chair, sobbing. Silas cursed and had to be restrained. And Darius just sat there, staring at nothing, realizing he'd thrown away everything for a woman who was now going to prison with him. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Naomi. "How does it feel to get justice? What's next for you? Have you reunited with your daughter?" Naomi held up a hand, silencing them. "Justice feels like breathing again. Like the weight I've carried for 4 years has finally lifted. But more than justice, what I want is healing. For myself. For my daughter. For every survivor who's been told they should just move on and forget." She paused, looking directly into the cameras. "I want to say to anyone who's survived something they shouldn't have had to survive, you are not broken. You are not damaged. You are a survivor. And your scars are proof that you refuse to die. Wear them with pride. I do." The next day, Naomi sat in a small coffee shop, waiting. She'd arranged this meeting through Marcus and Jennifer Bennett. They'd been supportive, understanding, willing to help Naomi slowly reintegrate into Harper's life. The door opened and Harper walked in, holding Jennifer's hand. She was wearing a yellow dress and carrying a stuffed rabbit. "Hi, Dr. Nia," Harper said shyly. Naomi knelt down to her level, tears already forming. "Hi, sweetheart. Actually, I need to tell you something. My real name isn't Nia. It's Naomi." Harper tilted her head. "That's a pretty name." "Thank you," Naomi said. "Harper, do you remember the drawing you showed me? The one of the lady in the fire?" Harper nodded. "That lady," Naomi said, her voice breaking. "That's me, baby. I'm your first mommy. The one who was in the fire. I didn't die. I survived. And I've been looking for you every single day since." Harper's eyes went wide. She looked up at Jennifer, who nodded encouragingly. Then she looked back at Naomi. "You're really my mommy?" Harper whispered. "Yes," Naomi said, crying openly now. "I'm really your mommy. And I love you more than anything in this whole world." Harper was quiet for a moment, processing this enormous information. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched Naomi's scars on her arm. "These are from the fire?" Harper asked. "Yes," Naomi said. "They're from when you were trying to reach me?" "Yes, baby." Harper looked up at Naomi with those big brown eyes. "I knew it was you. In my dreams. I knew you were real." And then Harper stepped forward and hugged Naomi. And Naomi held her daughter, really held her, for the first time in 4 years. She breathed in the smell of her, felt her little heartbeat, listened to her whisper, "I missed you, Mommy." "I missed you too, baby girl," Naomi sobbed. "Every single day. But Mama's here now. And I'm never leaving you again." Over the next year, Naomi slowly rebuilt her relationship with Harper. The Bennetts were gracious, allowing supervised visits that gradually increased. They all attended family therapy together, learning how to co-parent, how to give Harper the stability of two families who loved her. And Naomi built something else too. The Phoenix Center opened on the 5-year anniversary of the fire that should have killed her. It was a sanctuary for fire survivors, domestic violence victims, and anyone who needed help rising from the ashes of their old lives. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was packed. Survivors from across Texas came. Fire departments sent representatives. And standing front and center was Harper, holding Naomi's hand, wearing a t-shirt that said, "My mama is a phoenix." 5 years ago, Naomi said into the microphone, "Someone tried to erase me. They thought fire would be the end of my story. But fire doesn't always destroy. Sometimes, it transforms. Sometimes, it reveals what was always there underneath: strength, courage, the will to survive." She looked down at Harper and smiled. "This center is for everyone who's been told they're too broken to heal, too damaged to be whole again, too scarred to be beautiful. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. Your scars are your story. Your survival is your power. And your future is whatever you choose to make it." The crowd erupted in applause. Harper squeezed Naomi's hand and whispered, "I'm proud of you, Mommy." "I'm proud of you too, baby," Naomi said. "You're the reason I survived. You're the reason I fought. You're the reason I'm standing here today." That evening, Naomi and Harper visited the site where the old house had stood. It had been rebuilt now. A new family lived there. But Naomi had bought the empty lot next door and planted a garden. Sunflowers. Hundreds of them. A memorial to what was lost and a celebration of what survived. They stood there together as the sun set, mother and daughter, survivors both. "Mommy," Harper said quietly, "do you wish the fire never happened?" Naomi was quiet for a long moment, thinking. "I wish I hadn't suffered. I wish I hadn't lost 4 years with you. I wish I hadn't had to fight so hard just to survive." "But," Harper prompted. "But," Naomi continued, "I don't regret the woman the fire helped me become. That fire was meant to kill me. Instead, it made me realize how strong I really am. How much I can survive. How much I can overcome." Harper reached down and picked a sunflower, handing it to Naomi. "You're the strongest person I know." Naomi took the flower and pulled Harper close. "You are too, baby girl. You survived that fire with me. And look at us now. We're both here. We're both whole. We're both home." As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky orange and red, the colors of fire, the colors of survival, Naomi Garrett stood with her daughter and finally felt at peace. He had left her to burn. But she had risen higher than he could ever imagine. Which moment hit you the hardest? Drop a comment below with your thoughts and tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our viewers around the world. Your support